Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be reacting to Pyrocynical's body language in the video titled My Response. Now before we begin, I'm not here to make any judgments, I'm not here to say who's guilty, who's not guilty. I'm here purely to analyse the body language he's giving off, and that's it. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
I'm going to use this video to address the allegations made against me. Recently, to those who are unaware, I've been accused of grooming a 15-year-old boy when I was 19. That I'm some kind of predator and was aware of his age all along. This is categorically untrue and a complete...
Okay, so the first thing you can tell about this, and this is a thing that I want to establish right from the get-go, is he's doing a lot of looking up to the right, and I think he looks left as well a couple of times in the video. People always say that that's a sign of lying. It's not. Looking up both sides is an indicator that you're thinking or remembering something. It doesn't indicate if you're a liar, and he does that throughout this video. I have watched it once before, just briefly. He does that quite a lot in this video. He's doing a lot of thinking. It's a very stressful situation, so we can't really take much from that.
Lie. The supposed proof for these insane allegations is paper thin and embarrassingly wrong. I originally made a response on my subreddit, and I truly believed the evidence I provided was enough. And for a time it was.
So yeah, we can see there he keeps doing it again, and he does it so many times in this video. Just important to note that.
But a few days ago, a poorly written Google Doc has surfaced claiming that I have lied in my response and I'm 100% guilty. I just want to be clear, I have never lied at any point. This document is disingenuous, manipulative, and it fails to include so much of my original statement, bringing new information.
So we've got a lot of gesturing going on there, which is interesting. A lot of his eye darting across the screen, but I think he's looking at a monitor down in the bottom left there. But some things we can take from that. Looking down is a very big sign that you feel either guilt or submission. So by guilt, I don't mean that you're guilty. I mean you're feeling ashamed of yourself. And he does delve into quite a lot of personal topics in this video, and he does look down a lot. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that he is doing something uncomfortable about his sexuality. He's releasing information that you really don't want to be releasing to the public, but he has to make this response. So a lot of that going on, looking down. But remember, there is a monitor that he's looking at as well, making reference to things. I think he's got the Google Doc in question up there, and maybe some points he'd like to mention in the video. But yeah, keep that in mind when he does look down. If he's looking down to the monitor, which I think he's doing a lot, he's just looking at the monitor. But if he's looking down straight, I'd say that that's a sign that he's kind of feeling a bit uneasy about the situation in terms of what he's done. Because as I've said, looking down is a sign of either submission or feeling kind of ashamed of what you've done or ashamed with yourself. So yeah, let's carry on.
It's not hard to dismantle it. It's just annoying that I have to be the one to do it. For those who haven't read the entirety of my original response, let me give a little background. When I was 19 and...
So firstly, his blinking as well is kind of a normal rate. He's not doing any excessive blinking. So I wouldn't take much from the blinking rate, but there are some interesting points in the video where his blinking does change a bit and his eye movement, but we'll get into that later on.
20. I like to take part in this degenerate furry roleplay with pretty much anyone that would reciprocate. And looking back on it now, the word cringe, that doesn't near do enough justice to how sad this all was. These conversations never led to any nudes.
Again, he's looking both sides. He's looking top left and top right, so it just completely debunks the myth that, if you look left, you're lying. If you look right, you're telling the truth. It's nonsense. Looking at both sides shows that you're thinking. That's it.
What these people look like, their gender, these weren't variables. Like, I could have been doing this with a 90-year-old cave troll and it wouldn't have...
Notice again how he looks down to the right then, which isn't where the monitor is. The monitor's on his left. When he's remembering his fetish, he does feel a bit of shame. And I'm not saying that he should be ashamed about that, but conveying it to literally millions of people on the internet might not be the most comfortable thing to do. So he does do a lot of looking down. And we can tell he's not just looking at the monitor because he's looking at the opposite side.
A difference. It was roleplay after all. You're just pretending. Now it turns out my accuser, Ivory...
Okay, instantly as well. Folding of the arms. This is another thing to mention. People say that when people are folding their arms, they're being deceptive. Again, complete myth. Folding of the arms is a self-soothing, pacifying behaviour. It it's a way of the body basically telling itself to calm down. It doesn't mean that you're lying. It doesn't mean that, you're the biggest liar out there. He's folding his arms because he's uncomfortable talking about a very uncomfortable topic. And he's doing that to soothe himself, to calm his body down. And the fact that he's folding his arms when there isn't anyone even there with him, he's just talking to a camera, shows just how much emotions he must be feeling. Because when you're in a social situation, people fold their arms because you literally have people around you. But he's on his own. He doesn't have anyone with him, and he's still folding his arms. That's a very strong sign that he's feeling a lot of emotions in there.
One of the people that I've had these conversations with was 15. That is 3 to 4 years younger than I was. It was entirely my responsibility.
Notice how he says that as well when he's talking about the age of the person and his fetish. That's expected, really. I mean, folding your arms when you're talking about something so extreme as that. Yeah, he's going through a hell of a lot of emotions in this video.
To verify his age before having these conversations. And the fact that I didn't, that is so incredibly negligent of me to do so. I may have been young myself, but still old enough to know better. But let me be very clear.
And notice here how he's always looking at the camera. Now, when people are being deceptive, when they're lying, even when they're just engaging a very uncomfortable topic, they tend to look away from the camera. They tend to look across to try and distance themselves from the person or the camera that they're talking to. He doesn't do this. When he's talking about his involvement with 15-year-olds, other than looking up left and right, which is remembering and thinking, he's always looking at the camera, which is a very strong sign that he's being truthful in what he's saying. He's not trying to distance himself from it. He's taking accountability and he's addressing the camera directly and not trying to distance himself from what he's done, which is... And I know I said I'm not going to get involved in terms of whether I think he was right or not, but this does show that he's being very truthful in what he's saying.
I had absolutely no idea that he was 15. I absolutely did not lie.
Bit of rapid blinking there, but it's kind of understandable when he's talking about something very uncomfortable. He blinks about 4 times in the space of a few seconds there, so yeah. But remember, rapid blinking, although it can be a sign that someone's under stress, which may mean that they're lying, obviously you have to take into account the situation, and if they're talking about something that's incredibly stressful like this is, it's only natural for them to do a bit of rapid blinking. So yeah, and notice how in the rest of the video, when he's not talking about such a detailed part of what he's saying, he doesn't do a lot of rapid blinking. So again, indicates truthfulness.
In my original Reddit post, and I would like to emphasize that Ivory himself did not disclose to me directly that he was 15, and the evidence itself.
So another thing that's kind of self-explanatory there, doing a lot of shaking of the head, trying to convey emotion. When people do that, it's purely to try and demonstrate their point. It's a subconscious thing. He's not doing anything intentionally, but he's shaking his head, which means that he strongly believes it, and he's trying to convey to you that he is genuine, basically. So he's convincing you to believe it. That doesn't indicate anything in terms of whether he's a liar or not. He doesn't really do it excessively. He only does it at certain points. So that, again, backs up the fact that he's been quite truthful in his video.
Supports this too. Up until September this year, I'd be perfectly cool with him. We were still speaking and still on very good terms. However, for one reason or another, he felt the need to come out about these allegations. To expose that I'm a sexual predator, I took advantage of him, and I knew his age all along. This is all untrue, and I am amazed how out of proportion this is all blown up. Several of our...
Again, I'd like to say more. He's not doing rapid blinking. He's not doing rapid eye movements. He's not trying to distance himself from the situation. He's not trying to put up any barriers between the camera and himself. He's not looking away quite frantically like liars tend to do, which does indicate again that he's being very truthful in what he's saying.
Conversations were leaked online by Ivory. Here's one of the more damning ones.
I'd love for my Sona nice as he well, to be honest, on the lips and...
Yeah. My God. He's provided a lot of proof like this to show how much of a degenerate I was. And I mean, I agree,
Notice, so originally when he starts that sentence, he's looking down left at the screen. Notice how he looks down center when he says that he's a degenerate. Again, that's a sign of him feeling ashamed of himself. Just an important thing to note there. He does feel shame in what he's done. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm not criticizing anyone's fetishes or anything like that. But he obviously does feel very ashamed to tell people about what he's been up to. As I'm sure pretty much anyone would be talking about their sexuality and what they do on the internet to 2.5 million people.
You got me. Now, the whole world pretty much knows what I jerk off to, but what he and...
Again, he looks down when he says jerking off. Again, sign of shame in himself. Yeah. So it's important to note that he only does it when he talks about the sexual stuff. So yeah, it does reveal quite a lot. But it's obvious that you'd feel a bit ashamed talking about your sexuality on the...
No one else has done is come close to substantiating how this constitutes as grooming. Ivory himself...
So when he mentions grooming, again, a very touchy topic. He does a lot of rapid blinking. Again, that's understandable. He's under a lot of stress. He's talking about grooming and the allegations against him. I'm sure if anyone was said to be a paedophile and trying to groom 15-year-old kids, you'd show the exact same body language as he is.
The only thing I can possibly think of is inviting him and a bunch of other people to an event in...
Okay, again, he looks down when he talks about inviting him to the event. Again, he's feeling a lot of shame in himself, which I'm not sure if that does indicate what he's saying is a lie. It's kind of a... Look, if you invited a 15-year-old kid out to come and do stuff with him, and he does admit that he found that irresponsible, it may not be sexual, so there's nothing obviously wrong with that if it's not sexual. But again, he does feel regret about it. He does feel ashamed of himself for doing that. And I think, yeah, he does admit that as well. So I wouldn't say that indicates a lie at all.
UK. And somehow this got spun as me buying him a plane ticket to fly him out.
Again, micro expressions, very difficult to fake. Slight smiling when he talks about buying him a plane ticket to have sex with him. Micro expressions are very difficult to manage, especially when you're in a 20-minute long video. He does find it slightly amusing that people think that, which indicates that he's being truthful and that he didn't do it maliciously, and yeah, that he finds the allegations ridiculous. So it's a bit of an insight into his psyche there.
Casually, no plane ticket was purchased, no specific handmade invite was sent. It was flippant, nonchalant, and that exact same invite was copied and...
Again, he's looking down to the center, so we know he's looking at the screen when he talks about the invite to him. Again, he feels regret about it. He feels ashamed of himself for inviting him.
There were no nudes exchanged. His name, his appearance, it wasn't important to me. I didn't even know what he looked like at this point. I mean, if he linked me a picture or something, I would have forgotten.
He does look down and to the right when he says about linking him a picture. So that's kind of one of the only areas where I'm thinking, is he being truthful or not? Obviously, talking about kids sending nudes to you is something that you'd be ashamed of, being in a simple situation like that, where he's disclosing his sort of sexual interest on the internet and talking about a 15-year-old kid sending him nudes. I think it's kind of understandable that he'd look down in terms of feeling ashamed for himself. So I'd say yes, but also it can indicate that actually he feels ashamed of asking the kid for nudes. So you can't really tell which one he's going down, but based on what he said in the rest of the video and his nonverbal communication, I'd say that he's being truthful and he just feels ashamed that he's even discussing sending nudes to a kid or receiving nudes from a kid. So yeah.
On it because it was just that irrelevant to me. But I'm going to jump right ahead anyway and invite him to come over just for sex. Okay, now this document, it tries really hard to prove that I knew Ivory's age, despite the...
Micro expression again, smiles when he says about his age and people trying to manipulate information to make him look bad, like he did know his age. Micro expression says that he just finds the allegations stupid and hilarious, basically. Not hilarious as in he finds them funny, but just kind of funny that the people would try and do that to him.
Fact that they have nothing concrete. Pyrocynical never saw any of the tweets of Ivory explicitly saying that he was 15 years old on an account Pyrocynical follow and interacted.
Again, where he says 15 years old, he looks at the bottom, even the screen that he's reading from is to his left. So yeah, again, a lot of shame he feels with himself.
With regularly. They then provide a list of Ivory stating his age multiple times on Twitter. So if I'm so sure that I didn't know he was 15.
So he kind of did do a pacifying behaviour there. He put his knuckles against his hand, which kind of is a sign of aggression, but taken with the context of this video, I'd say he's just doing it to pacify himself. He's not doing it holding a fist for a long period of time. He's simply whacking his fist against his hand to relieve stress, and it is a stressful situation.
How would I have missed this? This is something I said in my original Reddit statement. He never once disclosed the fact that he was 15 at the time these exchanges commenced. He didn't include...
Again, the second he says 15, he looks down to the center. So obviously, whenever he thinks about the age of the kid, you know, you do feel kind of a lot of shame with that.
His age in his bio until he was 16, but I was not on Twitter between the 28th of December 2016 until the 29th of June 2017, as I was suspended. It would have been a hell of a lot less likely for me to see all but one of these tweets that's been used as evidence in this Google Doc. My Reddit post clearly shows that I was suspended from Twitter at the time that they were made. And that of course leaves the very last one, but like, what are the chances of you catching one specific tweet when you follow hundreds of people? I brought this up in my Reddit post as well, but it's been deliberately left out as some like shit attempt at manipulation. I find it funny, like they're acting like I'm hiding something, when ironically, that's exactly what they're doing here. Literally, all the...
Okay, scratching of the back of the neck, another pacifying behaviour. He's feeling very, very threatened, very, very intimidated. And we do a lot of scratching of the neck when we do feel like under a very stressful situation. So he does do that. And I'm actually surprised that he hasn't been doing it more in this video. He hasn't done much fidgeting other than rapidly stepping from side to side. But I think looking at his other videos, that's kind of common for him to stand side by side. He's got a lot of energy in his videos. So that's understandable.
Never saw the DM where Ivory sent him his Twitter profile clearly stating his age. The next part really confuses me because now the claim is because he linked his Twitter, which had his age in his bio, I now retroactively know that when this message or that message was sent, I knew he was 15. What? When Ivory linked me his Twitter profile, the age in bio says 16. This is something I acknowledged in my Reddit post, but to be fair, I probably didn't elaborate.
Again, bit of basic stuff, shaking of the head, trying to indicate to you that he's telling the truth. So when we shake our head and nod, that's a non-verbal cue to the viewer, to the camera, that he wants you to believe what he's saying. Doesn't indicate that he's a liar at all. It's just a normal thing we do in conversation. We nod.
In retrospect, I never should have continued the furry stuff with him once I learnt of his age, even though at the time I didn't see it as a problem. Legally, age of consent is 16 in both my country and his state. I didn't consider the age gap significant enough because what we were talking about and doing was so far removed from actual sex. It literally was just fantasy furry garbage because I didn't consider Ivory sexual in any way in person. I never had a plan to progress our friendship into something more, and I never...
So another thing there, he does a lot of jump cuts, and you can see just before the jump cut, he looks down. Again, his body language changes instantly after he's saying something. He's instantly trying to basically calm himself by looking away and distancing himself from what he's saying. So, yeah, it doesn't indicate that he's a liar, but it does indicate that he's under a lot of stress, which I've said many times in this video he is, and anyone would be in that situation.
Considered it an issue. I understand, though, that, you know, this is going to be one of those weird grey areas where people are going to agree.
Again, looks down when he talks about grey areas. Understandable.
Disagree. I think it's a combination of all of these variables coming together, which led me to believe at the time there was nothing wrong from a moral standpoint. As for the other message, I don't remember seeing this message, and I'm not sure why it's being used as proof that I knew he was 15, because if you compare the dates, this message was sent 2 months after he sent me his link with his age in bio. The last 2 points for this segment, I want to tackle both at once here as well. Pyrocynical, who at the time was expressing interest in Ivory and being in a relationship with him at the time, which was corroborated by Pyrocynical's at the time soon-to-be girlfriend, still never knew Ivory's age. An age with Ida clearly acknowledged, and an age which she thought would not dissuade him from being in a relationship with Ivory. Somehow Ivory never mentioned his age, and no one else mentioned his age in the presence of Pyrocynical outside of all these clear instances, even once. So here they're trying to make it seem impossible I wouldn't have known his age, or had to do some kind of like insane mental gymnastics to never find out. But if you look at the DMs Ivory provided himself for this document, you can see that he's confiding with Ida about age being a problem. Keep in mind as well, I was not in a relationship with Ida until about mid-2019. This document claims it as soon to be, but like, it's a whole 2 years before we actually start dating, and 2 whole years before this conversation took place. I mean, we both talked before, but we weren't close. She had no reason...
I think that's the only point in this video where he's actually kind of lying. If you look again, a lot of rapid eye movement when he says that. Let's just jump back.
We actually start dating. And 2 whole years before this conversation took place. I mean, we both talked before, but we weren't close. She had no reason to confirm.
Yeah, when he says we both talked before, but we weren't close, you can see he looks down, looks right, or looks left. That's basically a way of the body trying to distance himself from what he's saying because it might not be true. This doesn't incriminate him. It doesn't change the fact that I personally think he's innocent. But it does show that he's basically not being truthful about that one particular aspect. He might have known her very well. He might have talked to her quite a lot. And he's just trying to sort of change things slightly. But again, it doesn't really affect what my general picture of him is. I think he's been quite truthful in this video.
With me was someone else's private information. So back when Ivory opened up to Ida about something private, there is no guarantee that she would have came and told me, despite the fact that this document and videos based off this document claim it as concrete, irrefutable proof.
Again, a lot of nodding. More so than before, he's trying to get it across to you that he wants you to believe he's innocent. Again, doesn't say he's a liar, doesn't indicate that at all, but he's very trying to defend himself. He's trying to stress, I am telling the truth, please believe me. That's what he's doing by those non-verbal cues.
Someone over 2 years ago. The messages from Ivory regarding a relationship.
So I'm going to skip towards the end of this video because it is a very long video and I'm just stressed for time here. So I'm going to put it towards the latter part of the video.
An entire video before they pass judgment. And this is like bitterly ironic. You make that claim, but you leave so much out of my original statement. It's written with like such cruel intentions, and it waits until page 16 out of 19, only then to confirm that I never actually sent or received nudes. I like as well how they just hid it in the middle of that huge paragraph.
Again, folding body language when he's talking about them sending or him sending nudes. It's a self-soothing technique. He's trying to soothe himself because he's under a lot of stress. He's been accused of sending nudes to a kid who wouldn't be under stress. And when he's talking about it, that clearly to me is the most uncomfortable thing he's feeling about this. Every time he's mentioned it, he's folded his arms, even though no one's in there putting any stress on him whatsoever. It's just him thinking and reading about what's been said about him. So, yeah, that's his biggest concern, I would say, is did he send nudes or not? And I believe he didn't. And his body language does say he's being truthful, but it's also saying that he's incredibly uncomfortable with that situation and being asked that question.
It also tries to twist conversations like this one. You know, like claiming that this isn't part of the roleplay, but discussing the hypothetical of having sex with Ivory. No context, no conversation before, no conversation after. You're just meant to interpret this as 100% I wanted to have sex with him in person. This document probably never thought I'd actually respond to it piece by piece because, you know, the majority of the messages, they're so fucking bad to look at. This document is cowardly. I mean, like, the ending is no exception. Like, they don't even definitively state if I groomed anyone. They just leave enough room for people to draw that conclusion themselves without openly saying it. Even if this was made in good faith, it is a severe case of tunnel vision trying to right a perceived wrong.
So again, he's trying to distance himself from what's being said there. He looks to the left and then up to the top right, I think. That's a way of people distancing themselves by what they're reading, what they're being, or by what's being said. He doesn't do it that often in this video, so yeah, I get him. I understand rapid eye movement when you're under stress and when you're thinking about or being these allegations put towards you. I understand.
I can't just sit here, you know, and let my name get dragged through the mud. On a side note, unrelated to this doc, I've actually seen screenshots circulating around of someone who drew like fan art of my
So touches his nose and then folds his arms. Perfect example of a pacifying behavior. The touching of the nose, pacifying behavior. You're under stress. You touch yourself, you touch your face, you touch your neck. He's done that and then he instantly goes into self-soothing with his body language by folding his arms. That is the perfect example of someone responding to a pacifying or carrying out a pacifying behavior and then self-soothing themselves after. It's a perfect example, that is. Absolutely perfect. And it's interesting to see.
In 2016, I then apparently replied to them, like jokingly saying not thick enough, and then asking for their age, and they said 15. So when people saw this, they instantly drew parallels to the grooming allegation. I asked them for a thick version, and they drew this, which isn't even really that different from previous things they drew before even getting into contact with me. I didn't commission it. What was drawn wasn't pornographic. They'd drawn very similar stuff before, and There was no roleplay here, it was nothing. And the thing is, this wasn't even a call-out post. The person that made the original video just said it was funny.
So I'm going to address...
It's not my place to decide. It happened. It was my responsibility to verify age, and I never did, and I am sorry for that. You shouldn't have been put in that situation, and it was stupid of me to message people about this furry stuff without taking into account the influence of my platform, especially considering how sexual...
So I think the end part is scripted, and I understand why it's scripted, but the way he's saying it is very monotone. He's looking straight at the camera, he's not focusing on anything else, he's delivering it, and it's a lot more clear than what he said before. So it does make me think that what he's saying is scripted, and I understand it. It's the only part of the video that is scripted, I think. And it's the apology, the official apology at the end, and of course you want to get that right. So I understand. And yeah, I think he's been truthful in this video, definitely. So in conclusion, I think this guy's telling the truth. All of his body language suggests that he's under a lot of stress. He feels very sorry for what he did, even though it's not illegal. He does feel very bad for it. He admits that in his statements throughout the whole thing. He says that he's sorry. He says that he was irresponsible. That's understandable. He's obviously very uncomfortable with it. He's obviously ashamed of what he's done. And I think that from what I can take from this, he's telling the truth and he's in a very uncomfortable situation. I did say I wasn't going to dive into the specifics of whether I think he's right or not. But his body language does tell that he's saying the truth, but he just feels incredibly uncomfortable with the situation. So if you like the video, please be sure to subscribe. And if you want me to react to any other videos, please link them below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you very much.